Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, we're going to make this power wash tumbler using some creative Fabrica files with some holographic vinyl. I created a very similar tumbler last year and had lots of requests for a tutorial. It just wasn't the right time, so I promised that I would do one for this Halloween season. So I'm going to create a similar design two different ways, and we are using the new 24-ounce travel mug from the Steel Magnolia, and we're also going to use the hyped KEWLZIE, which is a 16-ounce KEWLZIE. This first one, of course, is the 24-ounce travel mug, and I have base painted it just a purple color to match our glitter, and I'm going over with roughly 1 to 2 milliliters of epoxy. You want to get this extra thin because you do not want any runs. You just want enough to get your glitter to stick. The epoxy method is my favorite way to apply glitter to my tumblers or projects. I'm using ARTISTRY's 1-to-1 ratio fast set because after about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on your environment, I can actually go in with my initial coats of epoxy. It dries incredibly fast and really helps save some time. The glitter I am using, which is just absolutely gorgeous, is Super Spy from PDB Creative Studio. Just look at that purple. I just dumped it over the entire tumbler, making sure that I got all around that handle. And then I'm going to go in, since I cannot roll this cup in parchment paper, I'm just taking a sheet of, it's actually the backing from my transfer tape, and dabbing that all over the tumbler to help press any of those pieces of glitter down. Once I'm finished with patting this glitter down to get it nice and flat, we're going to move in to the next tumbler. Now for this next one, again, we are using the 16-ounce hyped KEWLZIE. This is a new tumbler from the Steel Magnolia, and we're just taking our full glue from Southern Belle Glitter and applying that with a makeup brush to get nice, even, streak-free coverage all over this tumbler. I did not base paint this one because we are going to get every last inch of this covered in some fools. Only thing I did was prep it using Mattify from ARTISTRY so that we could scuff that surface up just a tiny bit and remove any of the residue that these stainless tumblers have so that we would get really good adhesion with our full glue. After I applied the glue, I took my heat gun on a low heat setting and just went over the entire tumbler so that we can quickly dry this glue. This glue is extra sticky, so I just grabbed my tumbler arm stand from Kimmy Page Boutique and popped that on there so I can grab my non-stick COLORFLEX mat and my fools. The fools that we are using is the Lavender Full Flakes from PDB Creative Studio. I saw this in a reel on Instagram from Crafty Pink Scorpion and thought, oh my gosh, this purple that I have would be awesome. I will warn you, these full flakes will go everywhere. There'll be little bits and pieces floating through the air and they will stick to silicone and it will be difficult to get off. So I highly suggest grabbing some parchment paper and putting it underneath your work surface. Or of course you can grab one of these COLORFLEX mats. They also have them in black for ARTISTRY. So you can just wipe it right off and save you the hassle of all the cleanup. So I just put the full flakes all over this tumbler and then I almost rubbed it in as if I was doing the tack it method with some glitter. I just really rubbed all of those fools down and got this amazing texture. I sealed that in with some clear spray paint and gave both of these tumblers 2 coats of epoxy or until they were smooth. We're going to use some black spray paint and power wash on here. So I have my tumbler. I am dusting it with the power wash. You want to hold your power wash back just a little bit so it's not applying globs. You want little spots to fall on your tumbler. Give your tumbler a little shake to help it separate just a bit, and then you can go in with a light coating of your spray paint. I am using the Rust-Oleum Universal Gloss Black. I do not suggest using this If you are doing a power wash, a matte spray paint works best. I did have a can of the matte Rust-Oleum regular 2 times, and it clogged up before I could even get the first spray out. Color Shot is my absolute favorite, but my store was out of stock. After you spray paint, just go in with some water, wash everything off, and then you will be left with the power wash design. As most of you know from watching my previous tutorials, I have a Creative Fabrica subscription and I absolutely love it. I can go on here and grab as many files as I want with my subscription. And before I do these tutorials, I always find the files and save them to my favorites so I can easily show you all of the files that we're using, how to download them and upload them to Design Space. So I found all of these witchy and moon phase and crystal files and I saved them all to my favorites. I downloaded them by just quickly clicking the green download button, go straight to my downloaded folder, and then I can upload them to Design Space. I'm not going to go through every single one that we are using in this tutorial. It's really easy. All you do is click that green download button, head over to Design Space and click upload, find the file that you want. I always use SVG or PNG files, and then that will immediately remove the background. In most cases, you just follow the prompts in Design Space and your image is uploaded. I've been trying to show you how I lay out my tumblers before printing or cutting any of my images. So the first one that we are going to do is the 16-ounce hyped KEWLZIE. I measured the tumbler, epoxy and everything to make sure that my measurements were accurate, and then I created a shape and sized that shape to the exact size of my tumbler. This is going to help me lay everything out and know that I will not be cutting anything too small or too large. The first thing I do is add in my center image, and then I just go in with everything else, resize and move them around to get them in the areas that I feel like I will put them once I have everything cut. I wanted to fill in some of that negative space on there, so I added in a star shape and resized that to place it on here. And then once I had a couple of these, I went up to offset and created a 0.035 offset, so we can have a few that are just the outline of a star as well as the solid stars. Now to get that outline, you're going to do your 0.035 offset, and then you're going to highlight both of them and select slice down in the bottom right corner. That is going to slice your image to your offset and give you that nice outline along with your solid star. Once I had everything in place, I did a couple extra stars just in case so I could fill in that space on my tumbler. I removed that background, highlighted everything, changed the color so it would cut separately than my other tumbler, and then I duplicated all of these crystals so that we can have those for our other tumbler, highlighted all for our KEWLZIE, and then attached those so I can move it to the side easily without separating any of my images. Okay, so now that we are working with our 24-ounce travel mug, it has two different sizes. We have the top portion and the bottom portion. So we're going to create two shapes for both of those. The top first, and then I duplicated that and then just resized the second one to match the dimensions of the bottom. Once I have those resized, I just sent both of those to the back so we can easily lay over our images, and did the exact same thing. I just laid them over these shapes to put my design together before cutting. Don't forget to take in account that there is a handle on this tumbler, so although I forgot, make sure that you do size it small enough to fit in the area and not overlap the handle. For the witchy woman, I wanted to do an offset so it stood out a little more than the rest, so I did a 0.035 offset on that and then sent it to my cutting mat. And unfortunately, the centerpiece for our KEWLZIE did not cut properly, so I had to go back to Creative Fabrica and I downloaded this really cute half butterfly, half crystal design. And the good thing is I didn't lose any money not using that first design, because everything on Creative Fabrica is yours to use and also comes with commercial licensing. And you can download them all for free with your subscription. So it was just easy to go back, download another file, and make that correction. And since this one also had so much detail, I did go in and create a 0.035 offset for this one as well, so that it would stand out from the tumbler. I used TeckWrapcraft white holographic and a matte black for my offset. There is so much detail in these. Before I started trying to weed anything at all, I just cut all the individual images out. And we're going to place these on transfer tape and reverse weed them so that we don't lose any of those intricate details of these images. To do that, you're just going to trim around your decal, add on a piece of transfer tape before you weed anything. Make sure it is pressed down really, really well so it will stick to your transfer tape. And then carefully remove your excess vinyl. There were bits and pieces inside of our little moon phase decal, but I waited until after I put them on my tumbler to weed those tiny parts out. It just makes it a lot easier. Now for the crystals, There was a lot of space that needed to be removed in these, and a lot of small pieces too. So first, since this is a thicker vinyl, I tried removing it from the backing, leaving those negative space behind, and that worked pretty good, but I did eventually figure out a better way to remove those, and I will show you here in just a minute. But for this one, I just pulled the actual image up itself, leaving back most of the negative space, and then just hand place that on my tumbler. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a little bit better way to weed these. I placed my transfer tape over the image, removed that from the backing, and then pulled the image itself rather than the negative space off of the transfer tape. This left behind most, if not all, in some cases, of the negative space that needed to be weeded out, and I didn't lose any details of my actual decal or distort it in any way, since again this is a thicker vinyl and it is a small piece. I'm not gonna lie, I was really on the struggle bus with these cups. Like, the first one that I made, I feel like went a lot smoother. I don't know if it's, I actually used a different color vinyl. I don't know if that was it, or if I just need to use a new blade on my Cricut machine. It's been quite a while since I replaced my blade, so it probably would have made the weeding process a whole lot easier on these, if of course it was a better and deeper cut. But it's fine, we got it, it's fine. So I added my Witchy Woman decal a little higher up than what I normally would to give some room for our moon phases. When adding the moon phases on, I realized that I did make it too big because I did not take in account that there is a handle on this tumbler and I might run into that. So what I did is left that center image, and then I trimmed around each individual moon phase and added that to the side using the lines on the transfer tape as a guide to keep everything straight. Now I did a morning mug from the Steel Magnolia that has a handle. I turned it into a cute little s'more for my daughter, and I had a couple questions as to why, if of course she was right-handed, I put the design facing out. My thought process on this, and of course everyone is different, it's all personal preference, is if I pay for a custom tumbler, As I'm using that tumbler, I want everyone to see the design on it. So if I'm right-handed, I want to put the design facing out, just as I am here, so everyone can see the pretty design on my tumbler as I'm using it. I don't think there's any right or wrong way, that's just how I prefer to make my tumblers. After I finally got those moon phases added on, I weeded out all the tiny pieces inside of the moons, and it was time to move on to our big butterfly crystal decal for our KEWLZIE. I did the same thing and reverse weeded this one. There was tons of detail, and as you can see, this TeckWrapcraft vinyl very easily come off and left the design behind. After I had this large decal on the front side of my KEWLZIE, I weeded out those smaller pieces within the design, and then we added on all of our other elements to the back side of the tumbler. There are so many tiny pieces in this vinyl, and we put a lot of work into it, so I am not going to risk putting epoxy directly on here. You can seal with a clear spray paint, or you can go in with Quick Seal from ARTISTRY Epoxy. This is a poly coating. It dries really fast, and the reason I like using this more than I do spray paint is, one, you only need a tiny amount to do a full tumbler or cover your project, and it lasts a whole lot longer than a can of spray paint. 2, spray paint, you will need a couple of coats or maybe even 3 to protect your vinyl from lifting, because spray paint doesn't necessarily pull around your decals, where this is a liquid. So where it might be thin on top of your decals, it's going to not really glue up, but there's going to be a tiny bit that collects around the edge of your decals, really sealing them in to your tumbler. So there's really no chance at all of this vinyl lifting once you apply your epoxy and any heat to your tumblers. I gave that an hour to dry, and then I went in with my first of 2 final coats of epoxy. Now, I have heard so many times that people avoid using holographic vinyl because it causes micro bubbles. That is false. No vinyl causes micro bubbles unless you are using something that's porous like printable vinyl. This vinyl is solid and there's absolutely no way that it can cause micro bubbles. It's just that we are not getting all of the bubbles out of our epoxy. This is holographic, so it's basically going to magnify anything that is on top of it. So unless you get all of those micro bubbles with your torch or your heat gun, you're gonna be able to see them. So a couple of ways to avoid that is to allow your epoxy to sit for a few minutes to allow the bubbles to rise to the top. I'm using a fast set, so I'm not going to allow my epoxy to sit. I'm going to go straight in with it, and then I'm going to show you how I go in with my torch, go over my cup a couple of times under a really good light, and make sure that I got every last one of those little bubbles that you see here out of my epoxy. You also do not want to use any sort of low grit sandpaper on top of your vinyl in between your coats. The only one that I use is 400 grit or higher because it will show sand marks. Also, you do not want to use any sort of epoxy additives for an additional shimmer. The holographic will basically just cancel that shimmer out and it will look like micro bubbles on top of your vinyl. Alrighty, so here is the finished product, and while I was finding the lids to go back on these cups, I realized that they both have a couple of different lids that fit. So the 16-ounce hyped KEWLZIE not only of course has the KEWLZIE lid to hold a 16-ounce can, but the small steel Magnolia lid also fits it to turn it into a tumbler. And now the 24-ounce travel mug comes with a regular size lid, but it also fits my favorite lid from the steel Magnolia, which is the dome that fits on the 22-ounce cafe. Oh no, I love decorating these cafe lids, and I'm super excited that it fits on this 24-ounce travel mug. Can you imagine how cute it would be to have a whipped topping on top of a coffee cup looking like a latte, especially with the holiday seasons coming up? Or even add some PDB Creative Studio rhinestones on top of this one to give it some extra bling. Don't mind if I do. Alright y'all, so all the materials that I have used in this tutorial will be listed down in the description below with some coupon codes for y'all. Don't forget to join our Facebook group, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. And hit that bell in the corner to be notified so you don't miss any new tutorials coming up in the future. That is all for today. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next time.